Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tavern. It's time for another Tavern tale. This time we're looking at the Zodiac sign of the Sagittarius. Very interesting sign amongst the 12, primarily because it is the final fire sign and beginning of the final cycle of the elements. As Sagittarius is a fire sign, that means it's very connected to passion and energy, just like the other two fire signs. Now, it compares very interestingly to the other two in the cycle. Aries tend to fall under the category of short-tempered, very emotional, and sometimes aggressive or opinionated, but also are very effective workers. They like to get things done. They make very good leaders if they can get over their anger issues. The second is the Leo, which is very inwardly focused. They like to be the center of attention. They are very focused on performance, on how they are viewed. The Sagittarius is like neither of them. The Sagittarius is optimistic, outgoing, energetic, and of course, like many fire signs, can be seen as a little abrasive. On the positive side, the Sagittarius loves to travel. They love experiences over possessions. They can be a little opinionated and bold, and definitely love learning and experiencing new things. They come off as usually very confident and like to rush into stuff, usually in a good way. And due to this, they tend to have difficulty sticking with the status quo or following rules that don't make much sense to them. They very much are a free spirit, and they don't like being restrained by things around them. The weaknesses come from, well, some of the strengths, unfortunately. The Sagittarius can be opinionated, a little bit fickle, because as they learn or experience new things, it will change their opinions. While this is generally a good thing, it tends to happen very fast, and you oftentimes will not know exactly where you stand with your fellow Sagittarius. In addition to that, they have difficulty keeping to plans and schedules, which means they can come off as very hurtful to those who plan or schedule things, such as dates, family gatherings, or, worse yet, team assignments. In addition to that, they can be seen as rude or disrespectful, one, due to the fact that their opinions can kind of change moment by moment, two, because they can be easily distracted, and three, by that whole not keeping a time schedule. They lack grounding and oftentimes are incredibly unreliable. And from the Sagittarius that I have met in my lifetime, I find a lot of these negative traits tend to be true. But so are some of the positives. Bottom line is, if you're a Sagittarius, maybe take a moment to think about how your actions or what you're about to say will affect other people. Because in the end, it will have an impact. And maybe bear in mind that other people have schedules and can't just live by your whims. But at least you have a positive attitude and a lot of energy, which is a great thing and can make you a very fun friend. As long as we don't rely on you ever being anywhere or showing up on time or helping or whatever. You didn't come here for the astrology. You came here for the mythology. And this time we are looking at the story of the most famous centaur, Chiron. But he does have a similar problem to some of the other people we've talked about in the Zodiac. His story isn't much, but the people it affects and its value to the greater existence of Greek mythology is. And unlike most of the centaurs, who are descended from Ixion, he is actually descended from Kronos and one of the nymphs. This means, despite looking like the other centaurs, he's very different in terms of personality. The usual centaurs that are seen in Greek mythology tend to be aggressive, they tend to be wild, uncontrolled, violent, they love to drink, they love to mate, and they love to fight each other. They are just violent, wild animals that represent all the worst aspects that humans tend to have. But Chiron is different. He was wise, he was intellectual, and became a very important person in the lives of other heroes throughout Greek mythology. At a young age, his parents abandoned him. His father being killed in the war with the gods, and his mother being disgusted by the creature that she had given birth to. Due to this, he was found by Apollo, who decided to raise him as his own son. Chiron learned medicine, he learned to read the signs and be able to prophesize things. He became very intellectual. Due to his intellectual pursuits, he is viewed as the father of botany and pharmacology. So, pretty impressive traits right there. However, Apollo's sister Artemis also taught him things, like hunting and archery, which is why the image of Sagittarius, which is based off of Chiron, is usually armed with a bow because he was an archer, though he wasn't much of a warrior and never really went on any epic hunts. He used his knowledge and gained experiences to be a teacher. He lived on Mount Pelion, where many of the other centaurs also lived, and he ended up marrying a nymph. She bore him 3 daughters and 1 son, most of whom aren't particularly important to mythology overall, though they do have stories of their own, and their kids have stories as well. It's a whole thing. We'll get to them another time. They're not super important to Chiron himself, therefore just be aware he had 4 kids, whose names change based on who's writing, which is always great when no one actually knows the proper names. It's just, their names could be any of these names. Thanks. Chiron is best known for being a teacher, and he taught a lot of people a lot of different things. Many of these heroes will be having their own videos in the future, but there are a few I still would like to highlight. Asclepius is one of the more important ones, as he became a great healer and ended up teaching medicine to other people, and it's believed that he is responsible for the way medicine developed in the Hellenic world. He also trained Aristeus, who is the son of Apollo and has a lot of stories dedicated to him. It's a whole thing, and we'll get to it in a later video because his story gets a bit complicated. However, he did have a son, and that son was also taught by Chiron. His son, Actaeon, is perhaps one of the most unlucky people in Greek mythology. While he did get the blessings of being taught by Chiron due to his parentage, he ended up becoming a great hunter and went on several hunts, nothing too spectacular, but in one of his stories, while hunting, he stumbled across a beautiful woman bathing in a lake, who happened to be Artemis, goddess of the moon and hunters. When she saw that this guy was watching her, she cursed him and transformed him into a stag. He ran away from her, and his hunting dogs caught scent of him, chased him down, killed and ate him. The dogs then, not knowing what happened to their master, got sad and made their way to Chiron, who, through his various abilities, figured out what happened, made a mock-up of Actaeon so his dogs would be happy. That's his story. The last 3 students I'll give a little spotlight to are his most famous. Jason of Jason and the Argonauts, and trust me, we will get to that one, but because the Argonauts is essentially kind of an Avengers-style crossover, it requires explaining a whole load of the heroes that Jason gathers for this adventure. Then we have Achilles, the great hero of the Trojan War. He, of course, deserves his own video because his acts and heroism are amazing, and his death is one of the coolest deaths in all of history. It really is. It's badass. Finally, we have Heracles. Now, this is in dispute because while Heracles did learn mastery of the bow, it is not exactly certain if Chiron is the one who taught him, or if Heracles had mastered the bow on his own through his various adventures and hunts. But I like to believe that Heracles basically stopped by, learned archery, and was like, all right, dude, I'm good. But don't you want to learn about philosophy and medicine? And nah, I'm good. Heracles is a bit of a brute, and just becoming an awesome archer and forgetting about the rest seems to kind of work for him, to be honest. Regardless of whether or not he was Heracles' teacher, it is believed that the two of them did become friends. So the teaching may have just been a side effect of meeting and hanging out with Heracles. Who knows? Finally, we come to the death of Chiron. And here's the thing, like many stories, he has different versions of his death, one of which is radically different than the other two, and I think is the least interesting of the three. So we'll cover that one first. In that telling, Prometheus, the bringer of fire, the Titan who helped humanity survive, was of course chained up to a mountain and tortured because how dare you steal fire from the gods and give it to humans. Chiron, feeling that Prometheus' light was very important to all of humanity as a whole, wanted to trade his immortality in exchange for Prometheus's freedom. And through his friendship with Heracles, was able to meet Zeus and make that happen. This one is a little silly and convoluted, and since there isn't any major follow-up to it where Prometheus went off and did other things, it just feels kind of strange and anticlimactic, but his other two deaths are also pretty stupid. The second telling of his death ties into the 12 labors of Heracles. In this version, Heracles is on his way to deal with his fourth task. In the process, he has to travel through Mount Pelion. He meets up with someone and takes a break, they eat some food, and he demands wine, because Heracles wants his wine. Well, the guy he met on the mountain has a bottle of wine, but it was given to him by Dionysus. And well, upon uncorking the wine, the smell of it drove the centaurs mad, and they demanded the wine and started attacking. Heracles, who had now slain the Hydra and had coated his arrows of Hydra poison in order to allow it to assist him in slaying future powerful monsters, started knocking his arrows and shooting them off into the crowd of centaurs, hitting some of them, scaring others away. In the process of just spray and praying the centaurs, one of the arrows missed its mark and hit Chiron, who then was poisoned, and despite the fact that he was a great medic, could not cure the poison of the Hydra and ended up dying. Heracles then, feeling bad about this, asked Zeus to save his friend, and Zeus took Chiron and put him in the sky as the sign of Sagittarius. Kind of a bummer, but it does fit the generally morose feel of the 12 labors of Heracles. The final version ties closer to the Iliad. In this version, Heracles is stopping by in his various journeys to see his friend Chiron and asked Chiron to just look over his gear and make sure it's good. Meanwhile, young Achilles is training and doing student stuff. As Chiron looks over Heracles' equipment to make sure it's in highest quality and will be ready for his next adventure, an arrow ends up slipping out of the quiver, and again it is coated with the poison of the Hydra and cuts Chiron in the leg. And again, like the original story, Chiron can't really do anything about it. He tries everything he can. He even calls forth some of his students who know medicine to see if they can figure something out, and unfortunately within a few days the poison kills him. Like in the previous story, Heracles calls out to Zeus, and Zeus goes, yeah, he was pretty awesome. I like this guy, and transforming the brave teacher into a constellation. Regardless of which version you tell, it ends with him becoming a constellation who does carry his bow and arrow, and it is said that if he does fire his arrow from the heavens, it will strike whatever he aims at without missing. Whew! This was a long one. Chiron himself doesn't have a really great, exciting story, which is why I covered his general life relatively quickly. But the influence he has on Greek mythology by being a teacher to various heroes, whether their exploits became known throughout history or they were massive failures upon leaving the school, he still had a part to play in the lives and events of many adventuring heroes. And due to his importance to the overarching stories of Greek mythology, he has become a legendary teacher and something that any educator should aspire to be. Someone who can educate the next generation and even the generation after that to become the best they can be. Or watch one of your students get eaten by his own dogs. I mean, you know, stuff happens. Thank you for watching. If you're a Sagittarius, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you at the tavern.